Hello again, everybody. Today we're going to talk about parallel and perpendicular graphs and functions and equations. Okay, so parallel and perpendicular lines have to do with slope. So slope tells you how slanted the line is. Okay, just a reminder of how do we find slope. Well, if you're on a graph, you're gonna pick you two good points, and you're gonna do rise over run. And remember, when we say rise over run, it's rise divided by run. It's a fraction. Okay. All right. If you have an equation, remember. One form is ax plus by equals c. Your slope is opposite of a divided by b. If it's in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, then we know that the slope is the coefficient on the x. Okay? All right, and if you have a table or ordered pairs, you use the big bad Batchick structure and do. Okay, and by the way, the big bad Batchick structure and do, this is the same thing. You probably learned about this in the 8th grade. Okay, but basically I just kind of change it up a little bit because it's easier for students to understand. Okay, so just remember those. All right, parallel lines never intersect. Parallel lines never intersect. Okay, they have the same slope. Parallel lines have this same slope. Okay. So an example might be a slope of 1/2 and a slope of 1/2. Okay. Something odd. Keep in mind your horizontal lines. So let's say you had the equation y equals 5. That's a horizontal line because in the equation it only has a y. So another equation that might be y equals -4. These would be parallel because they are horizontal lines. Okay. All right, perpendicular is a little bit trickier. Okay, perpendicular is going to be two lines that meet at 90 degrees. Two lines that meet at a right angle. Okay, that meet at a right angle. Okay, so keep in mind, it's not just any line that's not parallel. Perpendicular lines meet at a particular angle at a right angle. Okay, and what types of pairs of slopes are we looking for? Well, the slopes are opposite reciprocals. Opposite means they're going to have different signs. One would be negative, one would be positive. Reciprocals means the fractions are going to be flipped. Okay, so this is kind of a little bit more challenging than the same slope. Okay, the slopes will have opposite signs and the fractions will be flipped. Okay, so let's take a look at a few examples of that. So if I have a slope of 1/2, we'll go back and use 1/2, then a perpendicular line to this would have a slope of -2. Okay, so think about that. If I flip this fraction, I get 2 over 1. That's the same thing as 2. And notice the signs are different. Okay? And you can remember the signs are different just by looking at this. I mean, this is a positive slope. It's going uphill. This is a negative slope. It goes downhill. Okay, so the signs have to be different. Let's do a couple more. Keep in mind, well, I'll get to that in a minute. Let's see, a slope of, let's do a weird one. A slope of 1, okay? That's rise 1 and run 1. So the line that's perpendicular to that, if you flip this fraction, notice it's a special case, you still get a 1. But the signs are different. So 1 and negative 1 for slopes are perpendicular. Okay? Let's see. Let's just do a slope of negative 5/4. Okay, so the perpendicular slope to that, you would flip that fraction and change the sign. So it would be a positive 4/5. Okay, keep in mind the odd lines. Okay, here's a horizontal line. Let's say that's y equals 4. That's a horizontal line. Well, a horizontal line is going to be perpendicular to a vertical line, and a vertical line, the equation is just x equals something, and it doesn't matter what the number is. Okay, so this would be a vertical, the equation for a vertical line. This is the equation for a horizontal line. So these would be perpendicular. So opposite reciprocals, a little tricky there. Okay, all right. So let's do some problems. Okay, notice we're determining are the lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither one of those. Okay, so we're given 2 points on a line for A and 2 points on a line for B. Well, if you look back at the front sheet, we need to find the slope, and when we're given points, we're just going to do real quick. So I'm going to set up the big bad batchic structure for both of these, and just to recall, you put your do over the numbers. So D stands for down, U stands for up. D stands for down, U stands for up. Oh, you know what I forgot? Sorry, I forgot something. Flip back over. Remember, these guys here, this has a slope of 0 because it's a horizontal line, and this has a slope that is undefined. So see, you're going to have to keep that in mind. Undefined slope and 0 slope make perpendicular lines there. Sorry about that. Forgot about that. Okay. All right. So back to this one. So I did do here. So we're going to simplify. The top would be -3. The bottom would be -6. And y'all, you definitely are going to have to simplify these fractions. You're going to have to simplify them. In order to tell whether you have parallel or perpendicular lines. So this simplifies to 1/2. Okay. And now for line B, we're going to do again. Okay. So when I simplify the top, I get -4. When I simplify the bottom, I get -8. And that slope reduces to 1/2. So notice, my slopes are the same, so these two lines are parallel. Now, mind you, I know that you can go in Desmos and look this stuff up. You could make a table and put -3,1 in it and 3,4 in it and put a line through it. You could do the same thing here. The problem is, again, this would probably be a calculator inactive part of a standardized test. So that's why you need to know mathematically how to determine your slopes and to know that your slopes are the same when you have parallel lines. Okay? So now let's do this. Notice they're not giving us ordered pairs. They are giving us equations. And the equations are in slope-intercept form. So your slopes are here. Okay? So we've got a slope of 6 and a slope of -1/6. Okay, So basically 6 is the same thing as 6 over 1, and if I flip that, I get 1 over 6, and notice the signs are different. So these lines are perpendicular. And if you just want to write perp, that's fine. But those lines are perpendicular. Okay? All right. Giving us equations again, but these are, well, that one's not even in standard form. This one's in standard form, but it's a little backwards. Sorry, trying to fix that. So let's see. Trying to figure out what would be best here. For this one, you could do it either way. You could move the 12 to this side by subtracting 12 and move the x to this side by subtracting x to get it in standard form. But you could also get it in slope-intercept form, which is a lot easier. So I'm going to write this, and we'll convert it to slope-intercept form. Okay? So remember, slope-intercept form is we're solving for y. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 12 on both sides. And I get 4y equals x minus 12. You can't combine those. And then remember, I divide by 4 every term. Okay? So now I have y equals, and we need to realize that the understood number there in front of the x is a 1. So this is 1/4 x, and then when I simplify that, minus 3. Okay? So for line R, your slope is 1/4. Okay? For line S, keep in mind they've switched this on you. 2 is your A and 8 is your B. So the opposite of A, remember opposite of A over B is slope when it's written like this. So opposite of A would be -2 divided by B is 8. Okay, that simplifies to -1/4. Okay, so we got a slope of 1/4 and a slope of -1/4. We need to be very careful here. These are opposite signs, but they are not reciprocals. These are opposite signs, but they are not reciprocals. So because the signs are opposite, they cannot be parallel, and they are not reciprocals. The fraction has not been flipped, so they're not perpendicular. So the answer is neither, meaning they are neither parallel nor perpendicular. They're not either one of those. Okay? Okay. Given two graphs, you're determining parallel or perpendicular. Okay? Basically, let's see. Do we have lines on here that we can even see? Yep, there's lines. Hopefully there'll be lines on yours. So you rise 1 and run 2. And if you look carefully, there's some little lines here. Rise 1 and run 2. So rise over run. So the slope here is 1/2 for this line. Okay. And for this one, let me make sure I can see. Okay, so for this one, we go down 1, 2, 3, and over 1. So rise divided by run is -3. So if I compare these two, they are not reciprocals and they're not the same. So these graphs are neither parallel nor perpendicular. Okay? All right. Flip over. Okay, so you guys need to do this. Okay? You're going to do for these so that you can compare your slopes. Okay? Keep in mind here, you can just pick your slopes right out. Here you got some special lines, and you can look back on the front page where I talked about those. And then here again, you're going to have to find your slope. You'll do opposite of A over B, and here you can just pick it right out. Okay, so teachers, let's pause the video. If you guys will find your slopes and determine if they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither, and then we will play this back so you can see the answers. Okay, So for number 1, if you did doo-doo and you reduce this, you can clearly see the fractions are flipped and the signs are opposite, so it's perpendicular. But notice, y'all, if you do not reduce these fractions, it's going to be hard to look at this and know. You've got to reduce your fractions, okay? So these are opposite signs and the fractions are flipped. These are perpendicular lines, okay? Here, your slope is 3 and your slope is 1/3. These lines are neither parallel nor perpendicular. They are reciprocals, but the signs are not opposite. Okay? Here, special lines. This is a vertical line. This is a horizontal line. It doesn't matter what this number is, y'all. If it's just X in the equation, that's a vertical line. And if it's just Y in the equation, that's a horizontal line. So vertical and horizontal lines are perpendicular. They meet at 90-degree angles. Here, you have to do opposite of A over B to get your slope. It's -3/2, and then the slope here is -3/2. These are parallel lines, okay? Okay, not sure if you have time, but there's 4 more on the back. So pause the video and see how far you can get. Okay, so here, opposite of A would be -1 over B would be 2. Opposite of A is -2, B is -4. We have a half and -1/2. These are opposite signs, but they're not reciprocal, so neither. These lines aren't parallel or perpendicular. Rise over run yields 1/4 for the slope on both of these, so they are parallel. Here, need to pay close attention, folks. You get a 0 on the bottom of this fraction. A 0 on the bottom is undefined. And when you put that in a calculator, it's going to give you an error message. When you do -2 divided by 0, it gives you an error message. It says cannot divide by 0. Okay, so that's undefined. Okay? And then when 0 is on top, see if you put that in the calculator, you get 0. So this is a horizontal line. Vertical lines and horizontal lines are perpendicular to each other. And then here, pick your slope of 2, your slope of -1/2. These are opposite reciprocals because this is 2 over 1. When you flip it, you get 1 over 2, and the signs are opposite. So these lines are perpendicular. Okay, y'all have a good day.